Pitchfork Farms is a natural farm in Onomichi on the island of Mukaishima. It's about an hour's drive from Hiroshima, or you can get there by train and bicycle as well. In this video, Thomas gives us a tour of the farm and shows us all the different aspects which are important to think about when running a natural farm. So impressive how every aspect of the farm has a focus on sustainability.
The reason for Pitchfork Farms is we actually use a pitchfork to just fork the soil. Maybe once a year or every other year, we'll fork the soil in our beds, and then that'll add air, and we don't need to till or turn the soil over because maybe it's not necessary. It's better for the soil, especially in abandoned plots. Like if you're gonna, maybe in the first time you ever try to grow something, maybe you should consider tilling the soil. But after that, it doesn't really need much tilling. Like the things happening in the soil will happen naturally. You can almost think of it like a cake. You know, cakes have layers, and why would you want to disturb your cake layers? You know, you just end up with this mess. So, and also abandoned farmlands usually are very weedy. So you're just encouraging new weeds to come up to the top of the soil. So like right now in these areas, we haven't used a cultivator in a year, 2 years, 3 years. When I first came here, I was cultivating more, and I've realized maybe it's not necessary at this point. Maybe up to 40 or 50 crops in a year. We have carrots and beets, onion, garlic, tomatoes, a lot of different varieties of lettuces, baby kale to larger leaf kale. And we're starting to grow on the top part of the hill. We're starting to grow citrus and other fruits and pumpkins, these kinds of things.
Wow, great. How many people are working?
Just me. And sometimes we have friends, and my wife helps some of the sales. But for the most part, I'm doing most of the work out here.
Wow, well done.
And we have some animals. They help. They do work. They eat grass, and they fertilize the soil. And we can show you we have like chicken tractors set up, which actually work as kind of a mobile chicken mobile that we can move the chickens around. They till up the soil for us, scratch it up, fertilize, eat bugs, and then we'll move them again. So in that way, yeah, maybe I'm not the only one working. Based on what you're trying to grow, if you're growing citrus or growing apples, you would give it this applied amount. And it's very scientific, but it's more chemical and doesn't really focus on biology. And I think the biology in the soil is maybe as important or more important at times. So we're really trying to focus on that aspect. Pen, we also keep chickens in our larger pen, and then we'll move this, and you can see like the chickens were here and here in the last few days, and so the grasses here are now gone or dead. They've also scratched at the soil. Just before this, we have sheep. We have our sheep are up there now, and the sheep were brought in this area. We fenced it off, and we just let the sheep run free because it got really weedy over the summer. And this was like a really weedy pumpkin patch. And the sheep don't eat the pumpkins, so they can control the weeds without eating the pumpkins. We come through, harvest all the pumpkins, and then we'll bring the chickens in to kind of finish up cleaning.
Seems perfect.
Because we're using open pollinated varieties, we have green Shiso and we have red Shiso, and then they've blended now to make a green-red Shiso.
Wow.
So when you, if you make Shiso juice in the summer, it gets this pink color. You add just a little bit of sugar, boil some sugar with the leaf, and it makes like a really, like a rosé colored Shiso juice, which is really nice. So they'll be harvested in November or December, and they're great, like a substitute for potatoes. Really healthy and great builders of the soil. And we didn't plant, which is another great thing. Whatever we didn't harvest last year, you can't really see it because the potato ends up about this big, and when you pull it out of the ground, sometimes little tubers will split off the sides, and they just reseed themselves. So they're a great forage crop. And really easy to harvest and really easy to lose in the soil, because then they'll be covered in soil or dirt, and then can't really see them. So then next year, whatever you miss, they just keep. This whole area, maybe about a month ago, was all kale, and now as it's gotten, so it went from being cool to back into summer, getting warmer, and then now in this time, it was so hot that the moth, the caterpillars, were gone, and now they've come back out as it gets cooler again. So
Thomas explained about keeping sheep and how useful they are in eating the weeds and fertilizing the land, and also creates a product which they can eat the meat later. They also catch wild boar who come down from the mountain, and they would eat the meat from the wild boar as well. One of the issues that he talked about is making sure the sheep don't overheat because of their wool. So they had a visitor from New Zealand who taught them how to take the wool off, but it's a highly technical, kind of difficult procedure. So if they had more wool shearers in Japan, it would be helpful.
Neighbors are a little iffy on animals. It's too bad because these whole sections could be
Could be a lot more grazing.
yeah, a
right?
lot more grazing and taking advantage of abandoned farmland in Japan because there's a lot of it. And when we started out, we were just raising goats up here. We weren't growing any food for the first 3-4 years. We just let goats kind of run the whole place, and they take everything out. But then you don't want to overgraze too, so there's this balance that has to are really, they don't like to be touched like goats. They don't do well on a collar on a lead. I mean, if you could have some better mobile fencing, like a mobile electric fencing, that's one thing a lot of farmers are using. But it makes sense to have them just literally be able to walk next door and eat, and then bring them back to wherever you need to. And if farmers want to get started farming, 1 or 2 sheep in the first year or two is a great way to at least get your weed pressure down. And I don't really water very much up here. I use only rain-fed systems. If I've just planted something or just transplanted something, then I'm gonna apply water. But after that, I don't. There's enough water maybe flowing from the mountain. So I'm not really, like, this is sweet potato. I watered it maybe right when we planted it, but after that you have to wait, of course, on the timing. But I don't really water. I also, there's a local furniture factory. We get a lot of wood chips.
Oh, okay.
And so I put that in the pathways and in other parts, and that actually helps hold and conserve a lot of moisture. Also, kind of having the weeds around a little bit at this point helps retain some moisture. Ideally, we want to have trees up here. Now, that's our next step, is to start buying trees and start planting fruit trees and bushes up on this top part of the property, because we need more shade up here, I think, too. At least in sections and rows. The organic certification, it costs money. It costs maybe $1,500. And even I'm listening to a lot of the podcasts from the States right now on agriculture and farming. A lot of them talk about even what they allow in organic certification at this point, like all the way up to hydroponics and growing indoors and under lights. That's even being considered organic too. So people are kind of shying away from organic in some cases. Maybe looking at like regenerative agriculture is kind of a new buzzword.
Or natural farm.
In Japan, natural farming exists. Shizen noho. And this is pretty, this comes from like Fukuoka-sensei, one of the first natural farmers, like at least documented natural farmers, where he talked about what he faced and the issues he had with farming naturally. And it was one of the books that inspired me actually to come to Japan, and so he talks a lot about that. But yeah, I think Japanese customers though also aren't very aware. I'm a university student right now too, and we did a small research project on farmers markets and marché, and organic was on there, natural and pesticide free, and there's several of them in Japan, like that, several labels, but local seemed to be one of the most important. I mean, this was amongst only 200 or 300 people that we interviewed, but local was important. So maybe combining that and then bringing people out to your farm and showing them what you're doing, that starts to maybe matter a little bit. Plastic free, it can be packaging, but it also can be
on the fields.
Mm-hmm. We don't up here anyway, we're using a lot less plastic that's 1 year on, like this annual plastic, because it's annual plastic going in, coming off the field, and going into the garbage, going into the incinerators. We use the woven mulch plastic, which is usually used to keep weeds at bay on your edges and borders in your farm, but we're using that and burning holes in this, and then this plastic can last up to 3 to 5 years at least. If you take care of it, it can last even longer, and you don't end up with this that thin garbage bag like plastic in your fields. One of the lands we're buying right now, I'm every day going through, and every time I'm visiting this plot, I'm having to collect that thin plastic because it just goes into the field. So yeah, we have one customer who requested that we don't use plastic for packaging, and we're working towards that, but we're not perfect. And when we attend markets, yeah, we package our salad greens and mixed greens, but we're trying to maybe use rubber bands in some cases that can be then reused in the house. And then if customers, occasionally friends or customers will come here, and then we can actually give them in their own containers, and that's something that we'd like to see a little bit more of. The customer inspires the producer, and vice versa, I think. And in certain cases, this way of reducing our plastic, because then it also reduces our costs. But we still have to figure out the best ways to package it too, because I don't want to send leaf lettuce or baby greens, send that and then have it go wilted, because sometimes having the packaging just keeps it fresh within, because it keeps it contained and keeps the air from hitting it, so keeps it from oxidizing, I guess. So this is something we need to consider, but newspapers can work, like envelopes, these kinds of things that can be reused would be much better, or recycled.
Yeah. How about reusable containers? Like if you had your own containers and people paid a deposit?
That's something that I definitely thought about, especially buying reusable Tupperwares. And I know that some people, I've heard my friend when she was in that study with me. Her main focus is agriculture in Japan, and she talked about restaurants, delivering boxes of vegetables to restaurants. You give them a Tupperware container, and then you just exchange the Tupperware container, because if you have a good enough relationship with the restaurants, they're probably wanting the same thing every week, and they're wanting about the same amount, because their amount of customers doesn't really change that much. They have a pretty good idea. So if we could do that, providing a kilo or half a kilo of salad greens to one group and the other, that would be a great way to reduce it. So you have pumpkin, turmeric, banana, tomatoes were here, and this is comfrey, which is good for, it's a taproot. It brings up fertilizer and spreads it around to other plants, and the chickens eat it and get a lot of nutrients from it as well. So you just have this kind of mix. Again, the Jerusalem artichoke coming in and around here, and mulberry, and banana. So it's this kind of ecosystem to see if we can grow rice without water. And it's possible, but maybe it needs more fertilizer. Maybe we need to control the amount of water, but you can grow rice. You don't need a rice field to grow rice. Most of the reasons they use a rice field is to control weeds, because they kill all the weeds by flooding the fields, and then that's why they drain it and then they go and harvest it. But it's maybe possible to grow rice without actually having a rice field.
So you don't need all that water?
You don't, not necessarily, not necessarily. It's mostly to prevent
weeds.
Yeah, weeds.
That's interesting.
Like a lime for making, mojitos, salsa.
Wonderful.
It's really sandy soil, but we apply...
Is that cilantro?
Yeah, this is cilantro coming up now. We apply a lot of compost, and we're using to actually act as a mulch right now. having a lot of compost helps keep the moisture in the soil, and then and it adds fertilizer because these areas are really sandy, and so in order to prevent the soil from drying out too quickly, we can add this heavy mulch. Bath and this room here, both of these we use solar. We have 8 panels on this room here, and we produce hot water. There's a guy in Mukaishima, he's from America, and he came up with this, you see the panel on the side? We actually heat our water directly using direct current. There's no batteries in this system, so the solar panels take in the energy and they feed it into this box, and then we plug our hot water heater directly into here, and so we utilize 100% hot water from solar power.
That's awesome.
It's and it's all direct current, so a lot of times, like the system we have in this room, it's direct current is converted to alternating current, so DC to AC, and then this is charged into a battery. The battery gets charged, and then we can plug in like a light or a cell phone, a laptop. We can use that in that room, and eventually we're going to be putting more panels. We just purchased 4 more. We'll be putting them on that roof, and then putting this same box. We'll split it, and then because pretty much this can heat up water to 70 to 80 degrees Celsius, so it gets really hot. I mean, it's more than enough. And once you've charged this, because you can think of this hot water tank as a battery, once you've charged this up, then you're not using any more energy, so you might as well send the excess into the house. So you could run kotatsu, you could run more hot water pots in there, you could charge like a drill, these kinds of things, and that could run into the house. 4 more, we'll have 4 kilowatts of power coming, which is a lot of energy for small scale. Because it's the panels that have gotten a lot cheaper. It's the batteries, especially for solar hot water. It's probably the best and most efficient. I mean, when you're thinking about a lot of people are using electric or gas, and yeah, it's much more efficient to use the solar power, and it's not that much more expensive. I think for me, I've been brewing for 7 years, like home brewing, but fermentation is also an interesting part too, because like when we make beer, the barley, the spent grain, it gets fed to the chickens or it goes in the compost. It's a really great cycle to have.
Circular
on the farm.
system, yeah.
And then you don't have to buy grain. I mean, I think like a bag of like 15 kilos of grain or 20 kilos of grain, if you buy it, it's gonna not be organic, and it's gonna cost around $20 or so for a bag. But then if you buy malted barley, it's about 25 kilos, and it's about 6,000 to 8,000. And I've recently been able to source organic German malt, so I can now make organic beer.
Nice.
All the time, I guess, if I need it. Basically, yeah, you fill up your hot water pot. Depending on the season, of course, it's gonna be faster or slower. And as long as you have the light, and our farm is southeast facing, so it's pretty easy to manage. And then yeah, you kind of rotate this as you need to, and it can get hot within on a good day 5 minutes, maybe 10-20 minutes. I haven't really done a little bit of cooking with it, but it's mostly just to make hot water. It's faster, and yeah, it works.
How much would like the solar array? How much does it cost usually?
I think it was like Ichiman or something like this. Is what my wife
Seems
said.
perfect for camping, or
Yeah, it can be great.
if you've got a garden.
Yeah, if you've got a garden, I was thinking like of offering tea to people. If just solar tea, just open it up if it's a sunny day.
Yeah.
And posting on Facebook, and then that could bring people out to the farm.
So the boar are a problem because they dig up all the vegetables.
Yeah, they like to eat sweet potatoes, and mostly sweet potatoes, pumpkins. So like this is kind of the biggest time of year where people are a little nervous about the boar's gonna get in. But they also eat like earthworms and you know, all these areas, because they're abandoned now, the boars have just gone, you know, free range in these places. So you also have topsoil loss, and it's a huge ecological problem that will, you know, we're starting to see, I think, the effects of with all this like landslides in Hiroshima and in Japan all over, but especially Hiroshima has a lot of landslide problems, and maybe poor forest management mixed with wild boar populations increasing, you know, this is, and then the increase of temperatures and heavy rains all at one time, it's just going to add to bigger problems. It's a huge increase because there's no natural predators, and you have a decrease in the number of hunters too. So it's like this, it's just so multi-layered, and it's never really one issue. And now the biggest thing they're saying is, oh, it's impacting the farmland, but it's just because like that's what they can see, but they're not looking at like these broader effects of wild boars. And you know, they're becoming more of a nuisance even in the streets. Like sometimes you read about like in Shikoku going into shopping malls and things like this. And it's like everybody wants to have a this ninki. You know, everybody wants to be popular or famous for something at one point. You know, and it's. Is that really going to be sustainable? I mean, you know, here in Hiroshima, it's now this lemon area, and like you can only harvest and eat so many lemons. We're going to have this lemon boom, and then in 20 years, like, no matter, I mean, people are going to be drinking lemonade, you know, like everywhere, because it's just, they're not going to know what to do with all the lemons, like, and it's going to be free lemonade because, you know, that's just the policy they put in place. And so
more diversity would make sense.
It makes a lot more sense. It's more, I mean, on a farm, small scale farms, but that's what they really promote at like the JA and at these, in Japan. It's like people specialize, focus on one thing, and that divides up a lot of farms. And then if you do that, I don't know, I don't see it being, the long-term sustainability is very poor, you know. The way we're trying to grow is how much mixed varieties of things can we put in one small area. This little yellow teardrop tomato. I'm still not very good at trellising out my tomatoes. Like you can see, they get kind of bushy. But tomatoes we don't sell a lot of either. Like they're so cheap, I think, and we just eat and consume them ourselves. And then what drops, because we're not using F1 variety seeds, they'll just regrow next year. So plants, like in these 3 beds, we're getting ready to transplant a salad into here. I'm waiting again for the rain. It's gonna rain maybe Friday, Saturday. So just before that, I'll transplant some salad in. But yeah, we've got Swiss chard, like over here, Swiss chard, bell peppers, tomatoes, all growing in like one row. And just having that mix of variety, you end up having different types of good pests and bad pests kind of all living together. It's quite confusing for animals and pests. So, you know, if you have something of the same thing of everything, you know, it's really easy for that one pest to come in and attack. And this land too, it's been 1 year, one full year since we started, and the guy who was farming here wasn't using compost. He was just using chemical fertilizer, so he wasn't feeding the soil. So the quality of soil here also hasn't been very good. I've noticed just in the first year, like I haven't done any soil samples, but just the quality, the tilt, like the texture of the soil is really low. I mean, the color of the soil is like white, like sand. So we need to add compost. We need to build up the biology in the soil first, which takes 2 to 3 years at least.
It looks pretty rich now.
It's definitely increased, and that's, I think, has a lot to do with just adding the deep compost mulch, and figuring out maybe next what we can do to rest the soil, or what we can do to maybe improve it with another crop. So we use cover crops to improve soil, which you don't really gain much from cover cropping. You know, you don't get, there's no really economic value from doing it other than returning the material back to the soil. But it's like it's a time, you know, game. This stuff is going to last a lot longer and keep us being a lot more weed free. It's not going to tear up like the thin plastic is.
It probably costs a little bit more, right?
It's more expensive, yeah.
But if you can use it for years on end, that's much better than this kind of stuff, right?
Oh yeah, and this stuff, yeah. And this plastic from the typhoon that came through like 2 months ago. It just ripped the whole thing. And I mean, that's part of having a greenhouse, I think.
So this would be more sturdy on a typhoon as well, right?
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have. I mean, you need. And this wasn't new. This was a reuse from another farmer. So we're trying to actually buy off, or we've been given some plastic to put over the top. But another thing maybe is this woven, like the namiita, right? You can use polycarbonate plastic, like roofing material that's see-through or clear.
Okay.
And you can use that instead of your plastic, and that's going to last 20 years, right? So, you know, I'm looking at some other options, but a lot of stuff's not really available in Japan that I'm seeing Europeans and American farmers use. And that makes it, you know, it's a challenge. Like Japan, unfortunately, produces, you know, this type of plastic in the country. You know, it's made here. So for them to not promote what's made in the country, there's a German company that produces some plastic, plastic greenhouse cover that is supposed to last 20 years. It's not really available in Japan, as far as I know, and so, you know, you kind of have to use what you have.
Yeah.
I mean, we grow and we put in a lot of cover crops, like crimson clover is grown, and it'll flower in March, April, May, which is a great plant for the bees to come and have. The hairy vetch is another climbing bean, and it puts out this beautiful purple flower and attracts a lot of bees. We grow a lot of other covers like canola, so it looks like it's like canola flowers, or nanohana, I think in Japanese is the flower. So we're planting these kinds of things and attract bees. Hopefully we'll have some hives here too at some point. Maybe from next year we're thinking about it, because
Great.
it just makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
You're already doing with the animals,
yeah,
so with the bees makes sense.
It's another thing to do. And not, yeah, like I mean, I think like you've probably seen like the butterflies, right? They're major pollinators, and they're all on this farm. We have a lot of things happening on the farm because we have so many different maybe ecosystems, different types of plants that probably nobody on this village is growing. So that's something. And then we'll compost the raw material for about a year, and then we put it up on our a lot of our tree species, like in the back parts, and we'll let it break down and compost for 1 full year, and let it get up to the temperature that we need it to. So
What kind of trees are you planning to?
maybe a mix of like citrus. We want to do berries, like raspberries, and figs as well. Figs are pretty popular on this island, and they grow well in sandier soils. So we'd like to try figs in this area. Maybe more varieties of citrus, like grapefruit, lemons. I've been growing like what's called a wolfberry or goji berry. It's like a little orange berry. A little bitter, but it grows well and it's really healthy. We have peaches growing here, and the peach trees they're growing really well. They're not producing peaches because they get destroyed by bugs. We're trying to figure out that, but these 2 trees here are growing. They're growing well anyway.
Must be pretty blossoms at least.
Well, that's the best part at this point. Because it's so warm here and we have this greenhouse, we're going to be trying to produce, we have this greenhouse and we have the greenhouse over there, and then with a little bit of cover, we can be producing vegetables year round here. We're not like Sera or Kita Hiroshima, where once the winter hits, you really Of course, like things will grow a little bit slower, but we're not so limited to this, which is great. You know, I think we have to take advantage of that when we can. And honestly, I prefer this time of year for growing compared to the summer. It's just so hot.
Yeah. So autumn is usually a great time to get awesome veg and foods,
so.
right?
So yeah, autumn through for us, autumn through spring, we're really going well. I mentioned I'm a university student. I'm a second-year PhD student right now at Hiroshima University. So yeah, if I'm not available around then my wife can work to manage through those orders. Mostly on them, because what I'm doing right now is like on Thursdays are harvest days typically for us, and I harvest and then I go and take it to local customers here on the island and local restaurants. Those are my main customers. We went, the Kazoku no Daidokoro is a market that happens once a month. It's like a farmer's market, but it's not really like a farmer's market because it's just once a month. It's an event, and I'm sure you've seen like in Japan they just have these marchés or events,
Yep.
and it's the seasonal or a special one-time deal. And as a farmer, we need regular markets, and that also improves like lets us improve as farmers, continue like having stuff every single week for people. You can use them in soups, salads, tempura. Another popular dish from Korea is chijimi. It's like a pancake. You think of okonomiyaki, just don't add cabbage. Substitute your cabbage for your carrot tops, and it's maybe more nutritious, and you get a lot of vitamin A, I think, from the herb. In July, we actually got rain, so typically we don't have any rain after the heavy rains in July. So had that not happened, I wouldn't have gotten germination off the carrots. The carrots are really hard for the seed to germinate. I seeded carrots here.
Oh, I can smell it. I can smell the beautiful.
Yeah, the carrots, the tops they're like an herb, like a parsley or something like this. They're great. And most of the time farms are just chopping the tops off and throwing them away. So not even composting them, so. Our spicy chilies is okay, just like one or two.
Oh,
That's
yes.
all right?
I like spicy.
Okay. 80s, 70s and 80s. They're mostly growing seeds that are, from the home centers, and they're losing this variety, and you talk about food resilience. If you're completely dependent on buying all your seeds from outside, it's not a very resilient system. So it takes a little bit more effort, of course, and time and space to grow seed, because you have to let the crop grow through its whole entire life cycle, but you end up with more than you can use too, which is like this year. This is our kale seed, and the kale that I harvested over there, the kale that was up there. We harvest maybe a kilo of seeds. I can't use it, that much. So if there's abandoned spaces or open spaces on the farm, I can actually throw kale seed out there, and it just grows. It's much easier to harvest from that, or just set that aside as a seed saving kale square and not have weeds growing there, but have some food. And it's not as hard as I think people put it out. What's the percentage of the harvest that you had when you harvested it, where it was harvested, and then what's the percentage of germination that you'll get? And all these, there's a lot of things involved. So you could start a seed company. I think it's not impossible, but just like with butchering the sheep, just like with butchering chickens and doing it,
You
and
need
selling
certification.
you need a lot of certification, I think. And it's at this point, it's probably going to be increasingly difficult for you to save seed and sell that seed. Japan's even passing laws against certain seeds being saved, and they even protect certain varieties from, like, I think certain carrot varieties are protected from saving, and then certain.
Even for your own use?
Well, then it gets it gets really difficult then, because what they say is that, yeah, if you save it, you plant it, and then you sell that crop that you just planted, you didn't pay this. There's a small percentage maybe that goes towards the producer of that original seed variety. So if you didn't pay that person, it's kind of like copyright infringement. It's like if you use somebody else's lyrics for singing a song, you know, or if you borrow somebody's, you know, writing. It's
There's
kind of,
seed copyright?
there's seed copyrights for sure.
Wow.
For sure. I mean, because, and rightfully so, if you produce this really awesome song, you don't want anybody else to steal that. I mean, this is like the thought process, right? But then are seeds the rights of humans and something to be patented? Then it gets into like this idea of a commons. Soil as a commons, food as a commons, like forests are commons. But we're getting so far away from those like principles. It's a very difficult subject.
It's very controversial,
very
right?
controversial. They are happening in a lot of smaller communities, local communities across the world, is that you borrow the seed, or you check out the seed, like a library, like you check out, and then you grow the plant until full maturity and harvest from that seed. And then, let's say you borrow 10 kale seeds. Well, if you borrow 10 kale seeds, you most likely have a good crop. And there's no guarantees, but if you do have a good crop, you can return those 10 seeds you originally borrowed, but the chances of you returning those 10 seeds, if you do well, are very easy, because you end up with maybe 500 seeds from those 10 seeds. I mean, possibly, if you grow all the plants out. So yeah, this is one thing that we could start doing, we're considering doing, is maybe within this island though, because that also is maybe one important aspect of seeds and local seed varieties, is if you're growing seeds and saving them, it most likely fits in with this region, like maybe the Seto Naikai, maybe just Mukaishima, because our soil and growing regions is maybe very different. So maybe we don't need to exchange with people from like Tohoku or Hokkaido. But what we're seeing a lot of the times these days with seeds, the ones we buy in the supermarket or the home center, is on the back it says Italy, you know. And so to try to replicate crops grown here, maybe this library community model would be much better, because you're growing local varieties that are from that local region, and they're maybe tolerant to local growing conditions. Is the thought process, I guess.
It's a great idea.
And seeds, yeah, seed libraries, like, and saving seeds, it's just one more step of, you know, sustainability on a farm, I think, for the most part. And it's something that many people knew how to do 100 years ago. Most people, they don't know so much about it these days, or how to do it, or how to do it right. And we're still learning. So for us to start like a library, we'd have to start, yeah, really small, just with a few crops, and then kind of work up over time. This is like organic thyme seed. We can get Italian parsley. So these are varieties that we can buy organically.
Online?
Online,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So they're from Saitama. But again, like, this parsley is from, where does it say? Maybe it's from Europe. I mean, that's the other, you know, the German chamomile is maybe from Germany. So maybe it's not well suited for this place. So that's something we'd have to do.
I had such a fantastic visit at Pitchfork Farms. Big thanks to Tom for giving us the tour and explaining so many things about how the farm works. I think they're doing such a great job, and I look forward to supporting their efforts and going back and visiting again soon. Pitchfork Farms is in such a beautiful location. It's great for a day trip visit if you're in Onomichi or the Hiroshima area. And you can also order from them online and through Facebook. Thanks for watching, and make sure you hit subscribe and click on the bell so you're alerted to the latest videos.